Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know first, Mercor's rise to a $10 billion valuation signals a gold rush in AI data, but the market's reliance on a few clients creates extreme risk. We'll explore how this market concentration could transform the AI supply chain and what it means for the future of elite gig work. Second, the AI boom's hidden cost. US stockpiles 750,000 tons of copper, creating a global shortage for data center expansion. We'll explore how this supply crunch threatens the global energy transition and the build-out of next-generation AI data centers. Third, the US Supreme Court upheld a TikTok ban, but presidential inaction has created an executive kill switch over the platform. In this episode, we'll break down this legal paradox and what it signals for the future of free speech and global internet fragmentation. Fourth, Roomba inventor iRobot collapses 95% in value and is being acquired by its Chinese supplier after the EU blocked its Amazon deal. So we'll discuss why this takeover matters and what it means for smart home privacy when user data falls under Chinese national security laws. Fifth, Grand Theft Auto creator Dan Houser's new studio is betting against the industry with an ambitious AI-powered living sitcom game. We'll analyse why this creative gamble is a turning point and how it could challenge the billion-dollar live service model dominating AAA games. A company just declared itself the fastest growing of all time, rocketing to $500 million in annualized revenue. Its founders, they're 22-year-old self-made billionaires, and you've probably never heard of them. A while back, we talked about how AI was hollowing out creative gigs and inventing a new job category, the human editor, cleaning up after the models. Today, we're zooming out to the supply chain that makes those systems possible in the first place. The company is Mercor, and it's at the center of a new gold rush. While AI labs like OpenAI and Anthropic race to build artificial general intelligence, they have yet to find a way to make money, but the company selling them the picks and shovels are cashing in. The secret is that AI is desperately hungry for human-generated data, and the labs are paying premium prices for it. We previously analysed how AI still makes mistakes and needs humans in the loop. The latest development is that the human editor concept has scaled up into a vast market for expert-crafted training data, one that's now minting billion-dollar startups overnight. This isn't a small side hustle. It's an industry spending over $10 billion this year. Mercor is now valued at $10 billion. Its competitor, Surge AI, reportedly took in more than $1 billion in revenue and is seeking a $15 billion valuation. The catch is this gold rush is incredibly volatile because these data companies are entirely dependent on a tiny number of clients, the big, often unprofitable AI labs. We've seen this movie before. A company called Appen, once a giant in this space, saw its revenue collapse by 30% after its main client, Google, pulled back. It's a stark reminder that when your entire business relies on a handful of mega customers, you're always one contract away from disaster. Continuing our last discussion about Meta's AI turmoil, the llama stumbles and that jaw-dropping spending spree, this market concentration risk gets even sharper. But this gold rush is also a war. When Meta took a major stake in the industry leader, Scale AI, one observer said it was like breaking $1 billion piñata over the startups. Rival labs fled, and demand for competitors like Handshake AI tripled overnight. We previously covered how Meta's reset included reports of a $14.3 billion push to poach Scale AI's top talent and even NVIDIA's public snub of Llama. The latest development is the downstream effect. The moment Meta became deeply entangled with Scale, its perceived neutrality evaporated, sending rivals scrambling for alternative vendors. And here's where it gets interesting. When Meta bought a huge piece of Scale AI, it destroyed the company's neutrality. Suddenly, major clients like Google and OpenAI realized that feeding their sensitive data to Scale was like handing their secret research directly to a competitor. That's why they fled. Think of it like the computer chip industry. Companies like Apple and NVIDIA design their own chips, but they don't build them. They rely on a neutral third-party TSMC to manufacture them. Without that neutrality, the whole system would break down. The big question now is whether the AI data industry can survive without a truly neutral, trusted supplier. Now, the CEOs are publicly trading jabs, with one mocking his rivals for spamming physicists on TikTok. It gets more intense. Scale AI is now suing Mercor, claiming it poached an employee who stole clients. And here's the core paradox. The more advanced AI becomes, the more it needs humans. The race for superintelligence is being fueled by paying experts from Goldman analysts to nuclear engineers to create painstakingly detailed checklists for every conceivable task. A few days ago, we mentioned Nikki Tibble, the copywriter who ended up a human editor for robot written text. What's happening here is the elite version of the same pattern. Higher hourly rates, yes, but still precarious, still atomized. What's really going on, though, isn't some lucrative new form of digital consulting. It's the gigification of elite knowledge work. These experts are often hired as independent contractors with high hourly rates but no benefits or job security. In fact, both Scale AI and Surge AI have faced lawsuits alleging they misclassified these highly skilled workers to avoid paying them as full employees. It's the same precarious model as Uber, just with PhDs. We previously asked whether the human in the loop track is a sustainable career or a temporary stopgap. That question is getting louder as AI shops keep squeezing margins, turning even specialized experts into interchangeable parts. What's more, this process of breaking down expertise into checklists is incredibly tricky. It's a concept called Moravec's paradox. Things that are easy for humans, like understanding nuance, are incredibly hard for computers. When you try to turn a lawyer's intuition into a simple rubric for an AI, you lose all the context that makes their expertise valuable in the first place. As we've discussed before, that's exactly where the models still stumble and why the humans cleaning up after them remain indispensable. And this is crucial because the AI labs are running into a massive wall. A recent study from the research group Epoch AI projects that the industry could run out of high-quality, human-generated text on the public internet as soon as 2026. They are literally consuming data faster than we can create it. This is why they're so desperate for human experts. They are trying to find new, high-quality data sources before the well runs dry. And remember, we noted that watermarking and provenance standards are barely adopted and easy to strip out. So labs still lack a reliable trust layer, which pushes them back toward costly, human-labeled work. It's a market for what one CEO calls every nook and cranny of human expertise. This is all happening while one study found 95% of businesses using generative AI have seen zero return. The AI labs are selling a future of godlike machines. But the reality playing out is that the only ones guaranteed to profit are those selling human knowledge back to the machine, one task at a time. The future will favour the platforms that stay neutral and the workers who can set the rules, not just check the boxes. We just talked about the human expertise fueling the AI gold rush. Now, let's turn to the raw materials, because a very physical bottleneck is emerging. It turns out the United States is hoarding the world's copper. Refined copper inflows into the US have exploded by 650,000 tonnes this year, pushing the country's total inventory to a staggering 750,000 tonnes. This isn't a coincidence. It's a deliberate move by traders exploiting price gaps and anticipating future tariffs, effectively draining supply from the rest of the world. So the thing is, traders are playing a game of arbitrage. They see a price difference between the US copper market, COMEX, and the global benchmark, the London Metal Exchange. When the price on COMEX is significantly higher, they can buy copper on the global market, ship it to the US, and sell it for a profit. The anticipation of new tariffs, like a potential 50% tax on copper, just fuels this fire, encouraging companies to stockpile now. The impact is being felt on the London Metal Exchange, often called the market of last resort. Its inventories have plummeted by nearly 40% since the start of the year. And of the copper that's left, around 40% is already marked for delivery, meaning it's effectively off the market. This supply squeeze is creating a perfect storm. The world needs more copper than ever for the energy transition, for grid expansion, and for building out the massive data centers required for artificial intelligence. The AI boom, you see, has a hidden physical cost. What most people don't grasp is that AI data centers are incredibly copper hungry. A traditional data center might use a certain amount of copper, but a next generation liquid cooled AI facility needs 3 to 5 times more per megawatt. We're talking about 20 to 40 tons of copper for every single megawatt of power. A single hyperscale AI data center can consume up to 50,000 tons. The digital revolution is creating a very real, very physical resource crunch. With supply being cornered and major mines already downgrading their future output, experts are bracing for impact. And we can't just flip a switch and get more. The core problem is that opening a new copper mine is a monumental task. On average, it takes nearly 18 years to get a new mine from discovery to production. In the United States, that timeline can stretch to almost 30 years. The supply side simply cannot respond quickly to this demand surge. Avatar Commodities CEO Andrew Glass predicts copper prices will hit stratospheric new highs. City analysts are even more specific, forecasting a potential surge to $15,000 per tonne. The rally is already underway, with prices up 36% this year, but this is just the beginning. With major miners like Glencore and Rio Tinto cutting their 2026 production forecasts, Deutsche Bank is now warning that the market is heading for a clear deficit. With peak tightness expected in early 2026, the squeeze is on. Speaking of global ripple effects, a major government decision in the tech world has led to a bizarre and, frankly, dangerous legal paradox. The US Supreme Court unanimously upheld a law to ban TikTok, but then, in a stunning reversal, the president who was supposed to enforce that ban simply refused. The law, officially the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, was signed on April 24, 2024. It gave TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, a deadline of January 19, 2025 to sell its US operations or face a complete ban. The clock was officially ticking. The court's decision was called a spectacular misplacement of trust, accepting the government's national security arguments in what legal scholars are now calling a thin and credulous opinion. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The ruling appears to create a brand new national security exception to the First Amendment, and its significance lies in how it deviates from history. Even in wartime, the Supreme Court has been very protective of free speech. For example, in a 1967 case, the court ruled that the government can't just strip away constitutional rights in the name of national security. But this new decision suggests that when a foreign adversary and a powerful algorithm are involved, those protections might no longer apply. Many First Amendment advocates warn the court that banning foreign media is a practice usually associated with the world's most repressive regimes. Even more damning, a long list of legislators openly admitted their support for the ban stemmed from a desire to suppress specific kinds of content, like videos showing the devastation in Gaza. A House committee report bluntly stated a goal was to suppress misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. But that's not the whole picture. The court rushed its ruling to meet the ban's deadline, but then the president issued an order suspending the ban, and since then, he has extended that suspension 4 more times, with legislators who once called TikTok an urgent threat now nowhere to be found. This makes a mockery of the government's original national security claims. If you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. The court's decision has created a new dangerous power dynamic. TikTok now operates under the constant threat of being forced offline with a single stroke of the president's pen. For years, experts have worried about officials using informal threats to pressure social media companies. This is a supercharged version of that jawboning, but the difference now is that the pressure isn't informal anymore. Thanks to the law, the threat is legally backed and very real. The president now holds a kind of executive kill switch over the entire platform. The TikTok ban, for all its novelty, is now seen as a familiar story. The government exploiting national security rhetoric to gain power, the Constitution puts off limits. The ultimate result is that the government now has far-reaching influence over public discourse online, a national security risk in its own right. The ultimate consequence on a global scale is that the US may have just handed a legal blueprint to the rest of the world. By banning a foreign media app on national security grounds, the US has set a precedent that other nations could use to ban American tech giants like Google, X, or Meta, all under the guise of their own national security concerns. We already saw India ban TikTok back in 2020. This could be the start of a digital iron curtain where the internet becomes fragmented and carved up by national borders, fundamentally changing the open web as we know it. We were just talking about the US putting pressure on a Chinese tech giant. Now, let's shift our focus to a story where the tables have turned. An American tech pioneer is being taken over by its own Chinese supplier. The company that invented the Roomba has filed for bankruptcy. And in a stunning twist, it's being taken over by one of its own Chinese suppliers. iRobot, the American pioneer that put robotic vacuums in millions of homes, has filed for Chapter 11 protection. The buyer is Picea Robotics. the very manufacturer that has been supplying iRobot for years. This isn't just a random business deal, though. It's part of a much bigger trend we're seeing in the global tech industry. It's a classic case of the supplier becoming the master. We saw something similar back in 2016 when Foxconn, the company that famously assembles iPhones for Apple, bought the struggling Japanese electronics giant Sharp by acquiring the innovator. The manufacturer moves up the value chain, gaining control over not just the production line, but the brand and the technology itself. It's a massive power shift, but the real shock is in the numbers. Just 3 years ago, during the pandemic-fueled demand for home cleaning, iRobot was valued at over $3 billion. Today, its value has plummeted to around $137 million. That's a collapse of over 95%. The backstory here is a classic tale we've seen before with hardware pioneers like GoPro. iRobot literally invented the market, but they couldn't defend it. They were hit by a wave of lower-cost competitors, primarily from China, like Roborock and Ecovacs. These companies flooded the market with products that were often just as good, but significantly cheaper. iRobot's market share in the US plummeted, and they simply couldn't compete on price, leading to this catastrophic financial collapse. What really brought this to a head was the next development. This all comes after a massive $1.4 billion acquisition deal with Amazon fell apart. That deal, which could have saved the company, was blocked by European Union competition authorities. iRobot received a $94 million breakup fee, but it wasn't enough to stop the bleeding. This is where the story gets a fascinating and frankly ironic twist. The EU regulators blocked the Amazon deal because they were worried Amazon would crush competition. Their goal was to protect the market. But in doing so, they inadvertently created a situation where the financially crippled iRobot was left vulnerable, paving the way for its Chinese manufacturer to take over. It raises a huge question. Did an action designed to protect Western consumers accidentally lead to a worse outcome for Western strategic interests? This created the perfect opening. Picea, the supplier, quietly moved in, first acquiring iRobot's debt, and now acquiring the entire company. The official line from iRobot's CEO is that combining their innovation with Picea's manufacturing expertise will shape the next era of smart home robotics. But the deal also reignites a major controversy. Amazon's original bid sparked widespread fears about a tech giant having access to the floor plans of users' homes. The controversy, however, takes on a new dimension with this acquisition. The risk isn't the same. Amazon, as a US company, operates under American privacy laws, but a Chinese company operates under a very different set of rules. Specifically, China's national intelligence law can legally compel any Chinese organization to support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence efforts. This could mean providing the government with access to data, including the detailed maps of your home collected by your vacuum. This isn't a theoretical risk. It's a legal reality that makes the privacy concerns fundamentally different and, for many, far more alarming. The pioneer of home robotics, once a $3 billion giant, has seen its empire crumble, only to be rebuilt by the very manufacturer that once built its parts, a dramatic power shift in the race to control the smart home. From a story of a hardware pioneer's collapse, we now turn to a legendary software creator who's betting against the entire gaming industry to build something completely new. The man who wrote Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption is back. After walking away from Rockstar Games, the legendary studio he co-founded, Dan Houser, has broken his silence, and what he's building next is an absolute bombshell. He's not making another crime epic. Instead, his new studio, Absurd Ventures, is working on an open-world game he describes as a living sitcom. Now, get this, the technical challenge here is mind-bending. This isn't just an advanced version of The Sims. Houser's goal is to use artificial intelligence to create emergent, genuinely comedic times storylines based on how you play. After all, programming an AI to be funny is one of the hardest things to do. We've seen experiments like the AI-generated sitcom Nothing Forever, which often produce nonsensical humor, highlighting just how difficult this is. Houser is trying to create NPCs with actual memories that influence their actions, moving way beyond the pre-scripted content we're used to. He's also creating a dystopian thriller about a sentient AI that will be a game, a novel, and a podcast. He's building entire media universes from scratch. From a business perspective, what's happening is a strategy called transmedia first. Instead of spending hundreds of millions on a game and then hoping to adapt it, Hauser is building his audience and story world through cheaper media like podcasts and comics first. It allows him to test ideas, build a loyal community, and reduce the massive financial risk before a single line of game code is even written. It's a way to de-risk the whole process. So why did he leave a 20-year career at the top of the gaming world? After turning 45, Hauser says it was time for something new. He initially looked at writing for film or TV, but was completely unimpressed, stating that in that world, the creative ambition is so small at times. Interestingly enough, he's also taking direct aim at the current state of video games. He says that when watching recent game showcases, if you blinked and missed the credit sequences, you couldn't tell where one game ended and the other began. Everything was sort of dark purple and about space ninjas. This all reveals his core mission. Hauser is betting against the industry's obsession with live service multiplayer games. And it's a massive gamble, especially when you look at the economics. The cost to make a top-tier AAA game is skyrocketing, with some budgets approaching $1 billion. This has pushed most big studios toward live service games that can generate continuous revenue, but we're seeing the risk in that model with the struggles of games like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Hauser is looking at the phenomenal success of a purely single-player game like Baldur's Gate 3 and betting that a huge market is being ignored. He is adamant that a massive audience still exists for mature single-player stories, and he's putting his money where his mouth is. His new ventures are designed to feel totally different, to make people say, well, I've never played a game about that. His ultimate goal is to treat the audience not just as gamers, but as human beings.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.